Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Cyclonic Rift, a podcast all about Commander. My name's Matt, and this is Jon, but he's not speaking.
Okay, so what are we talking about today, Matt?
Today's episode, we're going to be looking into what I think you call them a good way. It's either pet cards or hidden gems. So I think we both sort of went back, and I actually went through a lot of my decks and figured what were the ones that I actually have in all of them. Also, what were the ones that I sort of went back and ordered a bunch of. So I sort of went back through, just sort of looked at critically whether or not they're actually good cards or something that I just enjoy playing in our meta, because for us it's graveyards, so that sort of comes out in mine, and green things, but we can go into more detail.
And I think the whole impetus behind this is there's cards that you think are trash, and then you go, wait, that's actually not as bad as I either suspected, or it's like a 25-cent version of like a $20 card, and it's actually not, and I a lot of those kind of my kind of fall into that category, because it's like 25 cents, like I could play this, it's like pretty good.
It also sometimes I find will have an effect that obviously has been like, it's been deprecated from the perspective of there are like potentially better versions, but which makes again sound the card bad off the bat, but it shows, I think, I don't know, for me, it's like the conditional effects that I really enjoy at a higher level, which sounds weird to say, but you'll see in some of my cards that it's a bad card. It's like a common from a recent set, but the effect that it does, I think it answers a question or a need, for me at least, and in some of my decks where there's like a lack of capability to have an answer all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And my take kind of on it is, there's old mechanics from old sets that nobody plays anymore, but you actually realize when you go back, that 25-cent common from Judgment isn't, like that, isn't that bad. So let's just get right into it. So we each have about 5 or 6 cards that we're going to just talk about. These are cards that you want to play at the table and you're like, wow, I've never heard of that, or I have heard of that, but in this context, it isn't actually that bad. Mm-hmm. So why don't you start off?
So, first off, and again, I tried to do like a bit of a spread between old and new, but also ones that I just like, again, they're cheap, they have a pretty good, okay effect, and really, some of these I really enjoy playing, as opposed to they generate value in a game or respond to something. So to start us off, my first card is called Morningtide. It's 1 and a white. It's from Torment, from back in the day, and it's a sorcery.
Love it.
I also love how it's called Morningtide, which is confusing because if you try to find it online, it just points you to the set as Morningtide. Yeah. So it's a sorcery for 1 and a white, and it just says, remove all cards from all graveyards from the game, or as it's been changed to now, exile all graveyards. I kind of went through these from a cost perspective and then sort of pros and cons, and it's cheap, and you can find a bunch of copies of it, but I think if I'm going through the pros of this, it's obvious what it's answering. And then for us, it's like some of the people in our play group, there's just so many goddamn graveyard shenanigans. What if you also consider too, like you think back to like Marin that came out a couple years ago, it's just once those engines get going, it's hard to stop.
Well, I think there's also been a push to have more graveyard stuff, because the combo that I immediately thought of when I saw this was, and there's some variations on this, but with Fall of Thran, immediately right off and so I was immediately thinking about like putting this in Narset.
Oh no. Exile all, so what is it? Fall of Thran, for
destroy all lands.
Destroy all lands, and then exile them all from this, you mean?
Right. So because it's a non-creature spell that comes out and doesn't require an activated ability, because there's artifacts that do a similar thing, but this just happens.
Yeah.
And so I immediately thought of Fall of Thran into Morningtide, because you play like a lot of top deck manipulation anyways.
Do you know what we call that? It's really mean.
Yeah, really mean. Yeah, I know. But there was a standard deck built around Fall of Thran. I mean, I think it's, it's fine.
Yeah. So the other, I think one of the very few upsides of this thing is that it's monocolored. It's cheap CMC wise. And I think it has a home in a lot of decks. And that's sort of on the note of monocoloring. That's like what I play. You know what I play, but for those who don't, I love mono white, even though people shit on it all the time. And it's very hard. It's in Commander, at least in multiplayer Commander, it seemed to be, what is it? It's seen to be
like the worst. Yeah.
It's the worst. And then I love to play combinations of that worst monocolor, which is like Selesnya and Boros. The difficulty with some of those decks that I play, like SRAM, for example, like a version of SRAM Cheerios, is I don't really interact with my graveyard, and I don't really care what's in it, so I'm more so concerned with having an answer to deal with everybody else's. And this is also one of those scenarios that, like, yes, the downside to this, obviously, is it is all graveyards. So if you are trying to recur something, and I'm thinking as well in that deck, I'm pretty sure I have Karmic Guide, that I might lose some value. But the only other con I could really think of besides the fact that it's all graveyards is it's sorcery speed. Like, it's sorcery speed graveyard removal. If someone's going to counter it, it's going to happen. But really, yeah, that's my first card, because I think it's something that I found a need in our meta, but I think it's also one of those cards to have just like a bunch of copies sitting around. And I think that's that's really the theme, I think, for a lot of our cards. Like, hey, I could really find that home for that in a lot of decks.
Yeah. Well, and, having other options, having redundancy is never a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly.
EDH. So having more Relic of the Progenitus, Silent Gravestone-like effects doesn't hurt.
Yeah, so the other thing I had sort of, like, you mentioned those, was trying to go through, like, obviously, what are the better effects? Those are the better effects.
Yeah.
From the perspective, especially, that they're artifacts, they cost...
If you evaluate them in a vacuum...
Yeah.
Like, they do more things.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean that if you're going into some sort of crazy self-mill deck and you turn to Morningtide against somebody who has 10 cards in their graveyard, I mean, that's probably okay.
The other way I also thought about this, and I think it's come across in some of our games, is mill against mill, because there is a mill deck in our meta. Last thing I have to say about this really is just, like, when would you not want to play this? And really, I think you would want to play it if you are... Obviously, it's a bit of an obvious statement. If you're relying on your graveyard, I'm thinking like Abzan strategies like Carador or Safi Eric's daughter and Selesnya that don't really care about that. But really, this is one of those one-time spells that you want to have in hand. As you said, it's a redundant effect sometimes, but it can get you out of like a very annoying situation sometimes.
Yeah, it's a white hate card that's a sorcery. So if you're playing any kind of Spellslinger deck... I would probably play this over Relic of the Progenitus or Silent Gravestone.
For example, your oppressive Narset.
Yeah. For example, Narset. So one of the cards, my first card that I wanted to talk about, and it's probably one of the more pricier ones on our list, about $4 American and $5 Canadian. It's Hunting Grounds. For green and a white enchantment from Judgment. Already, it's going to be good. Threshold. And that's a whole mechanic from the Odyssey set. As long as 7 or more cards are in your graveyard, Hunting Grounds has, whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. And we can't forget the beautiful flavor text either, which is, in the heavy hush of Krosa, drawing on mana is like ringing a dinner bell. Ooh, poetry right there. So...
Please go ahead. But I've seen you use this card, and like it comes out early, and it's like, oh, that's not that bad, and then it just gets bad.
So this is obviously a bad card to play into Morningtide because you want to activate Threshold, and it's kind of interesting. And I feel like there's been some cards lately in green and white. I'm mostly thinking of Renegade Rallier and like some of the Revolt cards from Kaladesh, where you care about stuff in your graveyard. This is probably the most build-around-y card in all the ones that we're talking about. But its effect is just really cool. Like, it could go in a Lurking Predators kind of deck. Mm-hmm. And what I played in, obviously, it abuses the fact of putting a creature into play.
Is it the Naya?
Yeah, so, like, you run all those effects like Elemental Bond, where the Ancient Treads. Mm-hmm. So whenever you just punish your opponents for playing spells by putting big creatures into play. Or you could do this like in a totally different route where you and I cringe at the thought, but you could stack players out with this too, keeping up like Spirit of the Labyrinth and stuff, and putting it into play on other people's turns and then you get rid of it. So it's cool. It's interesting. I've never seen anybody play it ever,
except for you,
except for me. And I think it's something that if you have a green-white deck that cares all about your graveyard, and the threshold thing is hard, but probably not as hard as you think. You could either build like an early game shell where you're trying to self-mill and get it out, but also late game. If you're in a creature-heavy deck, people are going to board white, so you're going to get a graveyard naturally through ramp, evolving wild, people killing your creatures. So if it comes down late game and you're able to just generate any kind of advantage, draw like one card off of putting a creature into play, then it's just going to get out of hand and you're going to be ahead. Or then you can come back from it because you're constantly able to cheat mana cost, and cheat mana cost is great.
Yeah, because the way, like, two things that came to mind when I've seen you play this, and it's just one of those things where you end up, like, if you have no response to these effects or it hitting, which usually when, again, it's pretty innocuous when it hits, that the first one is the fact that you mentioned those, but those effects where it's not Soul of the Harvest, but it is those ETB draw, and literally it's just it's almost like you're cycling through your deck.
Yeah, you're just putting things out, you're drawing more cards.
Because there's always that one person at the table, it's like Ristic Study, that they don't care. Everyone else is trying to give me some please stop, and they're just like, nah, I'm just gonna like not storm off, but like I'm just gonna keep playing my strategy. And then by the time it gets back to you, you have like 40 power on the board, but they seem to be fine with it still because they're like, oh, I have a board wipe in hand, but you then have some silly shenanigans where they make it through. The other one that came to mind, because like as a Selesnya player getting up to this level, is Gaddock Teague. Like, yeah, it screams Gaddock Teague because no one's gonna have fun, which you love doing. Yeah. And it's also hilarious because it goes into a Selesnya deck that is very blue in its nature. It's like, hey, do you want to do stuff? Well, you're not going to be able to do stuff. I'm going to do stuff, and I'm going to but in this case, I'm going to beat you in the face with these things.
Yeah, I think it could be really cool in a hate bear strategy, or like, imagine putting Containment Priest down off of this and stuff like that. Like, that just wouldn't be fun.
I'm thinking of, like, especially now, because I feel like I want to get another copy of this for the deck, but for Estrid. Because I'm thinking of things like Nihil's Colossus, which the few times I've been able to let that stick and get massive, it was like a 90-something with trample and flying, and it just killed people.
It works really well with Constellation and ETB effects because it enters. Put enters. Yeah. You don't get the cast trigger, but you do get the put trigger. Yeah. Consider it if you're, Spicy Brews, Hunting Grounds.
It's just a fun card too.
I love Threshold. So why don't you talk about another one here?
So this is also from an old set, and it's from... I love this one because I found it, and I said, this just screams effects that I love. And I also checked the rules text on it now, and the way it's written is different from how it actually appears on the card. Okay. So it's called Gaia's Touch. It's a green and a green from the dark.
Old card.
It's an enchantment, this is the updated ability. Pay 0. You may put a basic forest card from your hand onto the battlefield. Activate this only anytime you could cast a sorcery, and only once each turn. Sack Gaia's Touch. Add green. So, monetary-wise, it's $1.70 Canadian, $1.18 American, so relatively cheap. I just love this because it's, one, all like the old Gaia cards I love. There's that one from Magic Origins, like Gaia's Revenge or whatever it was. Yeah. Haste, can't be targeted blue things. I also just, for me, like, this screams any mono-green strategy. Not necessarily the fastest thing, because I've tried to think, again, going through some of these cards, would I put this into my most tuned deck? And I'm thinking of Selvala, and I wouldn't, because it sounds weird. It's too slow. Yeah. What I like about this, though, is one thing I realized, you can just, with Muldrotha, because we were talking about that in Stacks enchantment deck, sacking it, getting the green, playing it again, and that, like, this sort of thing. And it would reset because it's a separate copy.
What I was immediately thinking of was Tatiova. Yep. Which would just, yeah,
like that. Well, the clicking sound is the drawing lands, gaining life, drawing lands, gaining life. Sorry, drawing cards
because you're putting a force card onto the battlefield, so a land is entering, so it's going to trigger.
Yeah. So the pros are obvious. It's ramp. Yeah. And I'm thinking again, like I'm thinking like Gitrog as well, or like Titania. Any deck that you want, I guess most green decks are going to do this some way. You want to ramp. You can do that. You can do that early on. I'm thinking turn 2, you put a land out, you're a land ahead. Yeah. Most importantly, though, it does later on give you that little bit of extra green back. So the cost minus having the initial double green, that it sort of it doesn't necessarily net out because you do have to sort of plan ahead for that, or it's a bit more intensive. But I like it from the fact that it comes out and it can give you initial value, and it's again similar to Hunting Grounds. It's 2 mana.
Yeah.
Again, better versions though, like any other ramp spells. There are many other better ramp spells than this, but I'm thinking other similar effects like Exploration.
Yep.
Explore, which is the other version of that. There's Wayward Swordtooth. Because really, the huge downfall to this, because when I first read it, I was like, oh, that's amazing. You can put lands out. You can put basic forests out into play.
Yeah.
Which is it's that condition that I find that some people look at, because I think I showed it to someone and they just looked at it and it's like, oh, why would I want to play that in anything besides a monocolored deck? Well, they just play it in a monocolored deck. I don't know. Because again, I love mono green, so...
I think it has a place in land-based strategies where you're running a higher critical mass of land, so it's a good way to dump forests. Like if you're in Titania, you're gonna be playing with 40 lands, so you're gonna be drawing.
It made me also think of, as he's sitting in front of me, because I'm sleeving up some cards into it, is Lord Windgrace, because lands matter it's always been a thing, but
it's more of a thing.
Yeah, it's always it's present to certain levels of power in different play groups, and I think, as you said, it has a home there. I think it does. Please tell me if I'm wrong. That's the whole point of this.
Okay, so my next card, and the jury's still out, but I think it's something that we could be seeing more of, and I think it's something that is underrated because there's so much text on it. And I think depending on your meta, this card is a home for you. And then that's Fathom Feeder from Battle of Zendikar. It's less than $1. It's for a blue and a black, so for 2 mana, you get an Eldrazi creature 1/1. It has Devoid, so this card has no color. It has Death Touch. It has Ingest. So whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles the top card of their library. And then it also has an activated ability. So for 3 and a blue-black, 5 mana in total, draw a card. Each opponent exiles the top card of their library. So it just does a lot of things. And the reason why I particularly like it, it is a low... I'm looking at this more if you're playing any kind of blue-black X control-y kind of shell. It is a low-drop creature that you can sink mana into to draw cards and get rid of people's cards that they're turning to the top of their library. Permanently. It has Death Touch, so it's a relevant blocker. It has Devoid, and I don't know, it depends how many swords people play, but pro colors...
It matters sometimes.
And then Ingest, I think, is something that if you're playing any kind of Saboteur-like effects, people are afraid of Ingest because they don't want their cards to be exiled. I think that's like a psychological thing that's probably dependent on your meta. And then it can draw you cards.
Because people, I remember, well, you were there with me. We only played this in limited. There was a lot of them at the time, but in a limited sense, it was a powerhouse because, as you said, especially with a 40-card deck, you're literally eating away at their resources.
Yeah, it's.
But it's that ability. I think you're right. That late game, like, I don't know. I'm thinking of what are the other effects? Like, I'm thinking of what was that new land, Arch of Araska.
Yep.
Pay 5, draw a card, or pay 4, draw a card.
And it does that too. And it exiles a card from your opponent's library. So it just does a lot. So, and I think one of the things I find is that you want to have a lot of low drop creatures if you're playing in any kind of meta where somebody likes creatures, because you need to be able to present yourself as not totally vulnerable. And it's less than $1. So I think it can find a home in blue-black control decks.
It is also Eldrazi. So I'm trying to think of, like, in Commander, obviously there's the mono brown decks, which I love them calling them that. But the other colors where you would play Eldrazi, and I'm really thinking that I think I've seen one or two where someone legitimately just does, like, sort of, you've done it before, sea monsters, quote unquote.
Yep.
This one being Fathom theater.
Yeah.
That it's in the colors. So not to discount the fact that completely discount the fact that it is an Eldrazi, but I don't know. I like it.
Yeah, I think for what it's worth, it's something that people should check out more often.
It's also 25 cents to 50 cents, depending on where you find yourself on the border.
Yeah. Low costed, does a lot of things. Anything that has a lot of text on it, doesn't cost a lot of mana, is generally going to be pretty okay.
And then there's the cries of the people listening, but John, what about removal? It dies to bolt. And you know what? If it's going to die...
Yeah.
You know
sure.
what? I'd rather...
You're only losing 1 mana out of that in the exchange.
I'd rather someone, like vindicate this. Because really, if they're vindicating this, or what else? Like, pathing it, or... Obviously someone... Again, I think...
Sure, path my 2 mana 1/1.
Exactly.
Like, go for it.
Okay.
What do you got up?
So, next card. I love this card. I played this for the first time and you weren't around, and I feel like if you had saw what I did with this...
More people are talking about it, and I'm honestly surprised that it's still relatively cheap, because at its worst. So
I put a little note on the price. So I'm going to talk about this card and then talk about the scenario I played it in. And I really enjoyed it. It is called Guided Passage. So, correction here. It is a blue, a green, and a red from Apocalypse. Which, again, older sets. We love them. Also a sorcery, which you can see that I love sorcery speed things. Reveal the cards in your library.
So everybody gets to see all of your stuff.
An opponent chooses from among them a creature card, a land card, and a non-creature, non-land card. You put the chosen cards into your hand, then shuffle your library. It is a $2 card. Except, fun fact, so this is one of those instances where it's an older card, obviously, and this is one of the very old Teamer cards.
Yeah.
It's a $20 foil.
Yeah.
Which it's one of those ones where you crack a pack and you open one and you're like, hey, pays for like a fifth of this old overpriced Apocalypse pack. I wrote in all caps, fun. It's a fun card.
Well, for 3 mana, you get
3 cards.
You probably get your worst creature, a basic land, and your worst non-creature, non-land.
You get Morningtide.
Yeah, yeah.
you get one of my cards, but
it's still getting 1 card becoming 3 cards for 3 mana.
And John, you reveal your library. So the example that I had when I played this for the first time was I had I forget the exact card, but it had an effect out that, it's like whenever you cast an instant or sorcery card, you may make a copy and you may choose new targets. So I got 2 of these for 3 mana, and I think it was in a Yidris deck, and I think I cascaded. So it was the look on the guy's face that I just picked up my deck and I just went like, here you go. And he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, you get to, I'm revealing my library. So besides this being a little bit fun, I do see this as a very political card.
It's kind of like Tassiger.
Because you're looking at someone and you're being like, hey, I have answers in my deck. Because think about those times where someone plays a painful quandary, which happens a lot. And you look at someone, you're like, hey, I have a Rec Sage. And I also have a board wipe. And I have, I don't know, in my Idris deck, maybe I can convince this player who's mono black, I have an Urborg in there.
Yep.
And for some reason, you don't have that out for some.
Yeah, because it is a land card.
Land card.
So they don't have to get you your basic mountain.
No, they can be nice. Which I think with a lot of these political cards, like I'm thinking about like the Join Forces or the new ones, the Assist.
I think this is a better chance of going off than one of those Assist cards.
Because you're against them, you're like, hey, do you want to pay 4 mana to draw 2 cards?
No, just find me an answer for that guy's Ur-Dragon.
Because I'm thinking, I'm thinking this when I was thinking back at this card, it's very much a U card. It's Teamer.
Yeah, it's Teamer.
And it's
love everything it does.
It's political. And I think it's one of those ones where really you can have fun with it. So the downsides are a little bit obvious. You can whiff from the perspective of the player you're playing against is like, well, why would I do this for you? It's similar to
But even then, it's like a bad natural connection.
Natural connection?
You know the Tuna Green.
Oh, the ramp spell.
Yeah, search for a basic land.
Yeah, you get
at its worst, you could view it as that, but you're automatically going to get the worst creature in your deck, or
bring me my Linoir Elves.
Yeah. So I don't even know. I don't know. You said that it could whiff, but
I say whiff them, as you said though, whiff, comma, you get your worst. You get your bottom of the barrel. The other thing that, when we played this, because someone is looking through your entire deck, what they can do sometimes is they want to look at what you're doing if they don't know you. I'm thinking you're sitting down at an LGS and you're like, hey, there's an obvious threat, but look at my deck. So technically, and I joke about this when we play sometimes, I say slow play because they're literally looking through your entire deck.
Yeah.
But really, it's not a big thing.
So I think for 3 mana...
And again, going back to when I played this, I then got a second copy. And then I cascaded, which was just a fun stack to resolve.
Yeah, I bet if they printed this card today, it would probably exile itself or something.
It's a... Not to be rude to Wizards, it's a bit of an ugly card from the perspective that it's like, it's those old gold borders.
Yeah.
Where it's not gold, it's like a tired bronze.
But I'll guide your passage, Matt.
That's a bit too graphic. And it obviously there's the response of people to say that, well, it's going to be very telegraphed what you're doing. But I think if you're at this point where you're having to like collaborate with someone else to give them like a guarantee of what they can get you, and you can tell them exactly what they can get for the table, then you're already in a dire situation.
Yeah, I agree.
Next card.
Okay, so Oona's Grace, which is something I've found about, I don't know, like in the past 6 months. It's less than 25 cents. It's 2 and a blue, instant, from Eventide, I think. It's from Lorwyn, for sure. Target player draws a card. Retrace. You may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other's cost. And then again, flavor text. Oona grants her favored subjects a dream from her own guarded heart.
See, the problem with my card is that there's too much text on it. Guided Passage has a goddamn paragraph.
So I think people are going to start looking back at Retrace cards differently because of Jumpstart.
Yep.
And I found out about this card before Guilds of Ravnica.
He's putting your little hipster line there.
Yeah, my little hipster line.
You liked Retrace before it was good.
So I think there's a couple of reasons why this obviously is not as good as Ponder or Op or Brainstorm. It doesn't get you the card draw that you need. I look at this card as a repeatable card draw in your graveyard all through the entire game. So at any time...
And it's an instant.
So Retrace doesn't exile it. So basically, as soon as this hits your graveyard, for 2 and a blue and discarding that stupid land card that you've drawn, you can constantly reactivate it. I play this in Spellslinger decks, in Voltron, in Control.
You played in all the decks you play.
And if there's blue in it, like, I'm going to heavily consider Oona's Grace, because I think Retrace is really, really good. It doesn't have to be a basic land, just a land card. So for 2 and a blue and discarding a land, you get to draw a card. I think that has some value in it.
I think Retrace as a mechanic should come back. Like, not Jumpstart as sort of like a cousin to it, but I think about... Again, so
I would love it to come back, but I don't think. So I think Jumpstart exiles, right? Retrace doesn't.
Yeah, it gets. So I think, but I think about the other Retrace cards that you want to cast, and obviously people are going to think, well, there's
Waves of Aggression, Splitting Image,
the Worm one.
Oh, yeah,
which I can't think of the name.
Worm Harvest.
Yes. So that
wins the game. That wins games.
It's a win con. And think about, like, again with Gitrog, you also draw a card.
Yep.
But I think. The important scenario you brought up is, and again, we've all been there, that it's turn like 15, and all your resources are expended, and you draw another island, or you draw another, whatever it is, and you go, nope, draw a card.
It's like you have 12 mana, and you can cast anything that probably comes up of that you top, but you top deck a land, and you're like, great.
You're also retracing at instant speed.
Yeah, which I think is relevant too.
Which sort of bumps it up above some of the other ones that are...
Sorcery, yeah.
Yeah, because...
Splitting the Image and like Waves of Aggression or sorcery.
But Worm Harvest is...
Also a sorcery, I think.
Yeah, and it's that like hybrid black-green mana.
Yeah. This can go in... I think it should go in allow blue decks. I think with Jumpstart, I think this is better than Jumpstart. I think it can go in... If you're looking at making a Jumpstart deck, I think Oona's Grace should be slotted in. I think for 25 cents. And
you could also be like a jolly cooperator, and because it's target player.
if somebody's
like group hug decks, man, come on.
That's
group
true
hugs,
too.
Group hugs are playing overcosted spells that for good value for other people.
So Oona's Grace, I would definitely check it out if you're at all a fan of blue.
Again, 25 cents.
25 cents. Can't
I think that's like so the disclaimer for a lot of these is that Like, I'm trying to think. So, actually, my most expensive one is my next one. But a lot of these, we didn't intend to do budget. I think that just that you and I do this thing where we'll come across something and we go, oh, that's not that bad. But, anyways, next card is another green card for me.
You have a lot of green, I have a lot of blue.
This is a recent card.
Hint, hint.
Yeah, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. He's going to counter stuff. I'm going to ramp. This is a Planeswalker. This is recent, very recent. It is still in standard as of the time of recording.
That's true.
It is Nissa Vital Force. It is 3 mana and 2 green for Legendary Planeswalker Nissa. Her +1 ability, untap target land you control. Until your next turn, it becomes a 5/5 elemental creature with haste. It's still a land. Her -3...
So it protects itself.
Yes. -3. You don't want to do the -3 unless you have to. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, sorry. And her -6, her ult. You get an emblem with, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. Most important point, she enters with 5 loyalty. So, first off, I play this in a lot of decks, and Jon and our friends don't like, it's sort of like the kill it with fire thing when it comes out.
Well, because if you don't get rid of it, it protects itself, which is annoying. Protects itself with a 4/4.
No, with a 5/5.
5/5, yeah, annoying.
So it's also like that monetary wise, $6 Canadian. I found online, 5 US, but really this is going to most likely go down if it doesn't get picked up by a lot of people.
It's going to kind of bottom out for a little while. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I got this for even less when I bought like 5.
Yeah, it's a less than $10 Planeswalker that is pretty good in Commander.
Which is also like I think we should be happy as Commander players that Planeswalkers are less than $5. Dovin Bond, not the best one, but Dovin Bond is like $2. He's dirt cheap. Anyways, so moving on. So the value in this, it's obvious. It's you want to get the emblem immediately.
Yeah.
And how does it do that? Well, it makes a 5/5 land, which there are some times where that, and it's, again, think about when you want to play this. If
Turn
you play
5 or sooner.
Sooner, and when they're obviously, it's like any other consideration of, okay, I'm putting down a Planeswalker that's going to become a threat. Is it going to survive turn around the table? Obviously, there's instant speed removal sometimes, but I'm thinking more creature-wise. But it makes that blocker.
Protects itself well, yeah.
Makes that blocker, and there have been times where, because there are no immediate threats on the board, I'm really untapping a land that I can then use for more mana to cast something else.
Yep.
I'm thinking things like Nykthos.
Yep.
It's monocolor, the double green though, monocolor. So it literally, I'm trying to think of a green deck I don't or wouldn't want to put this in. And obviously this is in my Super Friends deck. And when it comes out, y'all just kill it. And really the biggest draw, I think of this right now, this is one of those cards that Planeswalker this is one of the ones that I would say will eventually increase in value.
Yeah.
And the other thing I tried to compare this to, and I don't really think it's comparable, not really power level wise, but really ability wise, are the other Nissa Planeswalkers, including the mini one, like the flip one. And it's not, I don't know, I wouldn't really play the other ones in decks that don't scream elf or lands matter, quote unquote. But this one just is like, hey, you're going to play lands. Do you also want to draw cards?
Yeah. I don't know how it interacts with Erixmathes, but I think with Tatiova and all the stuff that's come out recently with Lands Matters decks, and I don't think it's minus ability, it's -3 ability, which lets you regrowth for a permanent, is irrelevant either.
It's not irrelevant, but it's like, I think...
Well, Drotha decks, like, it's like a redundancy in that too.
When I play this, it in my mind, it is emblem or bust. I've also been able to get 2 emblems off this thing.
Yeah, so we don't remind me of that horror story. Okay, so we've got a couple cards left. The next one that I have is Commit to Memory.
Blue card.
Blue, lots of blue. It's under $1.
It is dirt cheap.
It is from Amonkhet. So it's one of the Aftermath cards, so it's the split cards from Amonkhet. So when it's in your hand, its effect is for 3 and a blue, at instant speed. Put target spell or non-land permanent into its owner's library, second from the top.
It's a fuck you card. Sorry, that's what it is.
So
I keep reading the other.
Okay, and then less relevant, but it's still maybe kinda. So the memory side of it is Each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into his or her library, then draw 7 cards at sorcery speed.
I forgot that other half was that. Like, yeah. Again, I'm thinking... I'll let you... Because, again, you love this card. I'll let you talk about it. But immediately my heart and my little scars of mill was like, this is a good thing. Counter the mill spell. Help everyone out. Yeah.
It's anti-mill, anti-graveyard, and its aftermath effect. I was thinking about this today. I wondered if it was structured, if the card text was templated as a module spell, if people would have looked at it differently. Because it really has, it has 2 effects. It's like, choose one.
You mean one of the... Actually, it is like one of those...
like the commands or something. If it had that kind of...
Choose one or more, or choose one?
Yeah. Because you're countering a spell.
Sorry, quick note. You're not countering. You are... This gets around uncounterable spells.
Oh, okay. Even better.
Like Supreme Verdict? No. Go away.
Yeah. You're putting it back, or you're putting a non-land permanent back. And the other thing is it's not an opponent. I don't know in what instant you would want to do it to yourself, but maybe there are. This could protect... If somebody's going to try to descend upon the sinful you, and you have a big creature on board, it's like, now I want that back. Which is
especially decks where you can go get something.
Yeah.
Again, you can go get... Not I'm thinking like Razaketh, like in a Dimir deck where you have Razaketh, because Razaketh is just good.
Yeah.
But I want to keep playing with that. Let's tuck it.
But for 75% of the time, it's a way to get rid of permanents in the short term, and sometimes that could be a 2-turn clock, and 2 turns is sometimes all you need. It can counter a spell, and typically you want to counter stuff that people are tapping out for.
Yeah.
It's 3 and a blue, so it's not as difficult to cast as some of the double blue, and then its memory effect, so the aftermath effect,
it's okay.
It's okay. It's a late game, need to draw a bunch of cards. This will draw you a bunch of cards.
This makes me think of
Recurring Insight?
No, there's another really good... I don't know... This effect, I don't know if this kind of...
They came out with a game plan.
Unsubstantiate?
Yeah. There's stuff like that.
Return it to their hand.
Yeah, return it to their hand.
I know some people look at things like Remand and think, oh, well, they're just going to cast it again. But I'm thinking about those one-time Sanguinate, Torment of Hellfire effects, where they're sacking things, making a bunch of mana, and you're just being like, nope, pass the turn.
I think if you're playing in play groups that have a lot of these, where they have to burn a lot of resources for a Hail Mary pass, that's when these kinds of effects are even significantly better.
Storm.
Yeah.
But Storm at that point is making infinite mana, I guess, but,
Maybe not.
Second from the top... Oh, sorry, my mistake. Second from the top actually matters.
Yeah.
You just go nope.
Yeah.
Go draw it. That's what you're saying.
So, sometimes people will be able to play through that, but if somebody's tapping out for Villainous Wealth, they're not going to be able to... Not be able to play through that.
It is also a 70-cent to $1 card. Yeah. It is one of those ones that I feel like, again, this is one of those ones that I need to go...
But yeah, commit to memory.
It's a good card.
If you like blue.
Yeah, and John likes blue.
Yeah.
My next card, this is one that I have started to work into my vernacular. As in, someone starts doing something in a game and I'll say, oh, you're a Vindictive Lich. Sometimes I'll change the L out for another letter. But this is, again, recent card, so most people know about this. I'm more so just sort of highlighting it because I love and hate it. It is a...
it can be so annoying.
Yeah, Vindictive Lich. It's 3 and a black for a creature zombie wizard. When Vindictive Lich dies, choose one or more. Each mode must target a different player. First one, target opponent sacks a creature. Target opponent discards 2 cards. And target opponent loses 5 life. As a reminder, this is from Commander 2017. It was in that wizard deck. It's about $3, $2 American to 3 loonies. If you want to call them that.
3 loonies.
Or a loony and a toonie.
A loony and a toonie, yeah.
So, I think my love of this card comes from being on the not receiving end. So, where we have seen this, I think, and again, it goes back to Morningtide.
Its creature type's irrelevant.
Yeah, like tribal does matter.
Yeah. It's good in recursion decks. Graveyards are everywhere.
That's where we've experienced this thing. I wrote down modular because from the perspective of worst case scenario, if this is late game and there's someone else, just you and someone else in a 4-player game left, like, well, what do you want to do? You're doing things that are oppressive in either way.
Yeah.
There's a god, and I play a lot of gods, so I know someone in our group has been playing more of these effects, like what is it? Edict effects.
Yeah.
Get rid of that, or discarding cards, which we know is just mean. That's the Canadian coming out. It's just mean. And then losing 5 life is like, okay, well, that's fine.
It's always going to, I think, the first 2 effects, which is sack a creature, discard 2.
Yeah.
The 5 life is kind of usually not.
No.
But the fact that you can target the person that has few creatures or a small hand, it's just also really bad because when you get into this mode of being able to recur it, because it has an on-death trigger, so it's relevant in all kinds of sacrifice effects.
And it's one of those things that sits there, and it's going to have to be dealt with, unless, obviously, the cons come in. Cons! Exile effects. Like,
yeah.
I'm thinking, what is it? Leyline of the Void comes out, turn 0. Well, crap. And again, I think, importantly, Tribes, Matt. Tribal is still a huge thing. Obviously, there's been that resurgence lately. But I don't think there's much else to say about this card, because it's just one of those things that I think it has that modular effect, quote unquote, it has those modes, that it can really... Again, I'm just thinking, as you said, someone has a problematic creature, get out of here. Someone is holding up mana, get out of here. And then you're losing 5 life.
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of like, and there's a little, like, a scoop of ice cream at the end. It's like the Eastside Mario's ice cream. Next card.
Okay. So, this is the caveat of, I think it's very conditional for who you're playing against. It's from Kaladesh Block. It's less than 50 cents, both in the United States and Canada. It's 1 in a red, sorcery. Gain control of target creature or vehicle until end of turn. We don't really care about the vehicle part.
No.
Untap it. It gains haste until end of turn. In addition, you may cast a card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. And then, again, it's flavor text. I was made for this.
Can you do that in the voice of, like, a small kid? Like,
I was made for this!
Yeah, it's like a little... Like, it reminds me of, like Disney's Hercules or something.
I've come to appreciate theft effects a lot more than previously.
Yes.
Probably because sometimes I'm up against people where I just need to get rid of one creature that's messing me up, and getting control of it would be a decisive blow. Could, like, win me the game. Particularly sometimes there's, like, Voltron decks too, where it's just like, I don't want to remove that. I just want to take it and use it against you.
I think I've seen you use this in that turn where it matters. Like, you know what I mean? Someone thinks they're safe, and you're just like, no. Like, you take it and you swing in with them, because, like, you take their flyer. You take that one threat, and you go to give it back to them, but,
yeah,
they're dead.
It's like, I need to hit you, but you have a Fathom feeder. Oh, I'll just take your Fathom feeder, and I'll ingest you this time, you know? I also think, and I think this kind of depends on what kind of play group you're in and what kind of level you're at, but I've noticed I try to really lower my mana curves down so that you may cast a card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. I find is more and more relevant, because it's like, I'm going to ponder for free. I'm going to brainstorm for free. I'm going to Path of Exile for free. Mm-hmm. So if you can sometimes sequence it, get some stuff. I can Fathom Feeder for free.
What are you playing? Like, you're playing
I'm playing some kind of Grixis spells or something.
Grixis creatures. So I'm thinking, like, so here's a scenario for you. Would you, again, evaluating this card, because in reality, some people look at this and be like, oh, that's like a bulk rare. But would you as an individual, cast this, like, let's say you're in I'm thinking mono red in this case, like mono red or Rakdos, or Grixis, where you're stealing things. Would you, like, turn 3, would you do this? Would you be like, I'm going to take your little weenie, hit you, and then maybe get a Signet off this, or maybe get, like, a Soul Ring off this? Imagine that.
I think these cards sometimes are deceptively good, and I think it's partially dependent on your deck, because it could also be removal.
In a way, yeah.
Like, you can steal somebody's indestructible creature, and if you have a sack outlet, it's like, see you later.
By God.
Yeah.
Or gods.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, like, you could take somebody's commander, And then...
Which we all know is just like...
It's never fun.
Similar to Ingest. It's just the worst feeling. You're like, oh, but I like Solala. But you have her now.
Yeah, exactly. You know, yeah. I'm gonna take her away from, and I'm gonna get advantage of it too. I think the double red leans it more towards you're playing this in like a kind of red deck. And yeah, I was originally coming at this card in a mono red deck. I think it can be really good in mono red. I also think it could be good in Boros. I think it's a card that should go in Boros because Boros Charm notably is a 2-mana spell.
It would have been fun to see this at instant speed. I know it wouldn't I know these hijack effects are very few at instant speed.
Yeah.
And I also realize that this is part of a cycle, like the expertise cycle, which I think, looking at the other ones...
Karizev gets the shaft.
I think Yahenni's also doesn't... Yahenni's just, like, says goodbye tokens.
Yep.
And what is it? It's similar... It's a 4 CMC for that spell, and then you cast something for 3 or less.
Yeah.
But... I feel like it can't even be evaluated within the cycle, because compare this to Rishkar's expertise, which is another card, not on the list, but please go get your Rishkar's expertise, because I'm gonna draw 15 cards and then I'm gonna put out something. Like, I think this, it just, like, I don't know, why wouldn't you want to, unless there's no target, that's the thing, like, unless obviously there's no target, but if you're in a meta where there are no creatures, well, then no one's having fun.
Yeah. And I think the last thing is that this cast a spell and get a free cast of something else is an effect that a lot of people are going to be looking at with Thousand Year Storm coming out and new Niv Mizzet coming out, and even in other decks where you're playing any kind of things with Sentinel Tower, Aetherflux Reservoir, which are, have kind of dominated the spell slinging
it's
deck brewing.
It's bolstered the archetype, like the list of the not the tool belt, because tool belt implies like tool belt decks, but the tools that you have available have really been grown a little bit more.
And so I think expertises can work. I'm gonna take somebody's Ur-Dragon off of this, know,
which I think you did.
Yeah.
And then again, I don't think you didn't cast anything, but it's still like. Because again, it's the fact that a lot of these effects are usually 4 mana.
Yeah, or they're usually attached with, you can only take something with a certain amount of power.
Yeah, like I'm thinking of that one creature, Enthralling Victor or something.
Yeah, I think you have to take with something powerless.
Yeah, which again, I think these are one of these things where it can come out of nowhere, and it can just knock someone off the top, or knock someone out of the game.
Yeah, it surprises people, that's for sure.
Nothing worse than being killed with your own or a dragon. It's just 10 commander damage. We have to track it now too. So last card, for context, this is a common.
Okay. Well, we have lots of commons.
Yeah, this is a common. This is one I sort of mentioned at the start. This is one of the ones that I think you love this effect now because of me. Okay.
Well, I think we need to put the disclaimer on. I think people are going to be running more targeted land destruction because of Ixalan.
That, and I think people should just play in Commander at least.
Yeah.
In casual Commander, as the caveat, should play more resource denial.
Yeah.
Because it is not fun, but it is needed sometimes. Because I'll be frank, I've won games before because of Maze of Ith.
Yep.
And that is why you now play this card, because I play Maze of Ith in almost every deck because of the way that we do our proxies, which we can talk about another time. But this card is Seismic Shift. It's 3 and a red. It's a sorcery from Dominaria. Destroy target land. Up to 2 target creatures can't block this turn. So it's not that good. I'm sorry. And again, it's a 1 cent card.
I 100% play this in Shuyan because I think it's great. But yeah, and a lot of other times. But the thing is,
my notes here are all caps because it's like these are the things you would destroy.
Like, Maze of Ith, Urborg. Yeah, well, because if you're playing a bit against Urborg and Cabal Coffers,
that's the one.
Yeah, when you get to like a certain point, even Itlamok, Growing Knights of Itlamok, when it flips, it's like, sure, I'm going to wipe your board. I'm going to get rid of your creatures. I'm getting rid of your permanents, non-land permanents. But it's like at a certain point, you have to realize that it's the stupid land that's letting them do everything.
And think about if you think about other colors, like I'm thinking the two color instant speed removal. It's non-land permanent, like Utter End. Vindicate, yes, but there are a lot that just don't do it.
No.
Cyclonic Rift, well, you can't get rid of Urborg, can't get rid of Gaia's Cradle, which I think that's also why I love this effect, because if you think about it, you're thinking, hey, your $200 plus Gaia's Cradle is going to be blown up by my frankly crappy card.
Yeah.
Which it for me gives me a bit of like it's sort of like it's like you know that first sip of like pop or soda depending where you are. It's like, oh, that was good. I like that. So there's just so much value in lands that, because it's a stupid statement, we all play lands. We all are investing in building mana bases, and really, like, I'm thinking as well, just like color denying someone, just be like, oh, is that your only blue source? Boop.
Yeah. And which I think is important, because now we have big, powerful 5-colored commanders like the Ur Dragon, and even sometimes playing into 3 colors. Sometimes people only have like 1 blue, and they're in Grixis. It's like, well.
The other thing, like, again, it's sort of like tacked on there, and there's very similar cards to this with variations on that second clause, but I don't know, I'm thinking back to those scenarios like with Shu Yan, for example, where you need to get in. Yeah. There's at least 2 that can't block. Obviously, the major downside is if someone's in tokens, you're not getting in. No. That's irrelevant.
Well, usually then you target somebody else.
Yeah, like, those can't block. And, again,
they don't have to be the same opponent either.
No, but, and the biggest, obviously, like, the other downside is if someone is doing, again, thinking like Lazov, and Lazov is a copy of something that's very scary and very, like, lethal, and you need to get in that one turn. I keep going back to that, like, that one. There are
sometimes. I think there are some times where you're like, I just need to. If you didn't have blockers, I could knock you out or put you behind.
I'm thinking of, like,
and so you need to do that.
My idealized scenario is I cast Glorious End the turn before.
Yeah.
And I stop them from winning, and then I swing in with like a Neheb or something like that. And there's 1 blocker, and I need literally to get through. So
it's good in Voltron strategies.
Yeah, but I think,
or if you can copy it,
similar to Morningtide and a lot of the other ones I have on my list, and again, we both have our list. There are better versions. There are, again, it's like, well, why not just like blow up all their lands? Why not do all these other things? Why not make your creature unblockable? Yes, but I think when you're building a deck and you come across these scenarios, and I think that's where a lot of mine come out of, is minus the ramp, because ramp is just ramp. Is like, I need to find a solution to this scenario. Here's a 1 cent card that I have 12 of because I went to draft or pre-release or opened a box, and you're going through the commons and uncommons. You're like, oh, this is not very good, not very good. And then you're like, well, I might play that. I think a lot of these cards fall into, for other people at least, I might play that.
Yeah.
One of those ones where I think you and I both have it, where when you're building the deck, there's the piles. There's the, oh, for sure, no thank you, and these always get cut. Like, you know the ones.
My Oona's Grace never gets cut, though. Never. Me and Oona go way back.
Okay. Well, you know what? You're just a blue player, so...
I'm on... Yeah, me and blue. My one true love.
So we have to do an outro. Do you have an outro? Or do we do the last call?
Sure, yeah. So that was... Those were our hidden gems today. We got 11 cards for everybody to look at. And let us know what you think. What platforms are we on now, Matthew?
We are on, let me tell you, there's a slew of them, and maybe we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. We are on Reddit. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We will be on YouTube, I think, eventually, maybe just putting up the audio. Yeah. But more importantly, we're also on Google Play. But really, I think Reddit is where we'll be living. We're at, our username is u/Cyclonic Rift podcast. And yeah, follow us on Twitter. I believe we're C Podcast, or again, C Rift Podcast. And we'll
put it in the description.
We will. And we're also, we do have a Gmail account, which is C Rift Podcast at gmail.com.
C Rift, Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah, which again, I think we should just pause on this and talk about it for like a split second. Is that I think the main reason we called this Cyclonic Rift is because
it's awesome.
Okay, you know what? It's